She poured hot water on me and smiled. Called me useless, not knowing I was secretly earning $50,000 a month, holding their household together. They kicked me out. Ryan, my husband, never called. Not even once. A month later, they begged me to come back. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I handed him a signed divorce form and walked away for good. Want to know how it all started? Let me take you back to the moment everything changed. You and other unemployed and uneducated people are not welcome in this house. My mother-in-law spoke those hurtful things to me. She immediately doused me with hot water. In agony, I exclaimed, "It's hot. Stop, please." I was unable to comprehend what was taking place. I was astonished by her actions. Regardless of the motive, it is always a bad idea to pour boiling water on someone. I was lucky not to get burned, but it could have been a lot worse. I couldn't believe it. How could I be treated this way by my mother-in-law? The fact that her statements were untrue made it even more difficult to accept. My spouse, Ryan, was the one without a job, not me. He was no longer employed. I had been putting in a lot of effort to provide for the family, but here I was, being disparaged and blamed. I became enraged. I thought I was at my breaking point. Her actions were becoming intolerable to me. I made the decision to defend myself. I said to her, "I'll go if this is how you feel about me." You prevail. My mother-in-law didn't appear to be upset. She actually stated, "Finally, you're leaving," with a joyful expression. That simplifies things for me. Her icy response demonstrated that she had no regrets about her actions. I came to the conclusion that I no longer wanted to remain in such a poisonous environment. I quickly gathered my belongings and departed. I knew I would be treated with kindness when I returned to my parents' house. My mother-in-law was unaware of the fact that I had options. Actually, it was me who was providing for her family. I started trading stocks after Ryan lost his job, and I was making around $50,000 a month. She and no one else were necessary for my survival. I made the decision not to assist her, even if she later approached me and asked for money. I didn't think she deserved my kindness because she had treated me so poorly. She would have to deal with the fallout from her deeds. Ryan and I had been wed for roughly 3 years. We both studied economics at the university where we first met. Following graduation, we secured positions at various financial institutions. Despite our hectic schedules, we maintained a solid relationship. Ryan asked me to marry him a few years after we first began dating. "Angela, I'll make you happy," he said. "Marry me, please." I trusted him. I had hoped that my life with him would be wonderful, but things didn't work out that way. Looking back, I'm happy I had the courage to go. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to leave a horrible circumstance. Ryan asked me to marry him, and I gladly accepted. I told him I'm excited about it. We believed we could have a good life together, so we made the decision to get married. I was looking forward to becoming a married couple and having our own family. But shortly after, Ryan said something that caught me off guard. "Hi, Angela," he said. "Are you willing to leave your work and live at my mom's house with me?" I was taken aback. "What?" "I have no problem leaving my job, however we recently got married. I want only the two of us to survive." "I get it," he continued, "but I'm afraid of abandoning my mother." "Do not be concerned. I will ensure that it won't be difficult for you." Ryan had lived with his mother ever since his father died when he was in middle school. Being the only child, he felt obligated to look after her. I acknowledged his sentiments. "All right," I replied. "I'll live with your mother and you." We moved into Ryan's family's house 3 weeks later. My mother-in-law initially appeared pleased to see Ryan again. She smiled as she greeted us. However, her expression altered as soon as she turned to face me. She gave me a harsh, icy look as her smile vanished. She was obviously unhappy with my presence. Although I couldn't hear it clearly, she whispered something under her breath. "You didn't need to come here, it sounded like." I grinned and tried to dismiss it, but I was secretly beginning to worry about living with her. The first day went by without any significant issues in spite of this. My mother-in-law yelled at me to wake me up the following morning. "Are you still in bed? Make breakfast quickly." I glanced at the timepiece. It was still dark outside at 5 in the morning. She requested breakfast so early, which surprised me. Perplexed, I sat up. "Why so early?" I inquired. She reprimanded him, saying, "Don't just sit around because you're not working." I didn't want to dispute with her, but I was still half sleeping. I so got up and began making breakfast. She was constantly critiquing me while I was cooking. "Be quick. Why do you move so slowly?" she yelled. Despite feeling hurried and anxious, I persisted. 20 minutes later, breakfast was finally ready. I apologize for keeping you waiting, I said courteously. At last you completed. Can't you work more quickly? She grumbled once more. Her stern remarks hurt, but I remained silent. I understood that this was just the start of what life with her may bring. I couldn't help but feel uncomfortable when I sat down to eat. Already living with my mother-in-law was turning out to be far more difficult than I had anticipated. Instead of telling her that there was no way to cook any faster, I chose to grin and try to ignore it. She wasn't finished complaining though. What is this? She glared at me and remarked, the soup is too salty. With caution, I answered, I don't think it's that salty. What do you say? Are you suggesting that my taste is flawed? By giving me such salty food, are you attempting to kill me? She yelled. I was astonished by what she said. I had never thought of such a thing, let alone intended it. Why was she making these accusations against me? And why did she treat me so badly? Her actions were unpleasant and perplexing. I plucked up the strength to ask, Mother-in-law, why are you so hard on me, in an attempt to understand? What are you discussing? She pretended not to understand what I meant when she said, I'm not being harsh. Are you attempting to paint me as the villain in this situation? Her attitude overpowered me, and I muttered, no, that's not what I mean. I found it difficult to carry on the conversation because of her pressure. Clean up the dishes after dining. There's laundry to do after that, she said. There isn't any time to relax. My mother-in-law continued to mistreat me after that day. She chastised me for everything every day. It was mentally and physically draining. I did the housework. You missed the dust in the corners, she would say. She would say, there's still a stain here, as I was doing the clothes. Even so, are you doing it correctly? I felt as though I could no longer bear living this way after a month. I had reached my limit. I made the decision to discuss it with Ryan one evening. I started, Ryan, I need to talk to you. It's incredibly difficult for me because your mother has been speaking hurtful things to me every day. Would you kindly ask her to stop talking to me in that manner? I thought Ryan would console me or at least answer, but he remained silent. I became even more agitated when he remained silent. Are you listening, Ryan? I inquired again, feeling irritated. Then I became aware of something strange. He appeared pallid, as though he was unsure of how to express himself. What's the matter? Has something taken place? I inquired, worried. Ryan was silent for a moment. In actuality, I was let go from my job. I was surprised. What? Could this be a joke? No, he muttered. Many staff had to be let go by the company. They chose to shrink as profits fell, and I lost my job as a result. What I was hearing was unbelievable. So you don't have a job anymore? I asked, finding it difficult to take in the information. Yes, he said. I will no longer be employed as of tomorrow. Unable to think of anything to say, I sat there silently. All of a sudden, my world felt even heavier. I knew I had a limited amount of time left to work after learning that I would lose my job in a month. Fortunately, I had been trading stocks utilizing the knowledge I gained at the securities company. It was difficult at first. I made a few blunders, but I improved with time and soon began making roughly $50,000 each month. We weren't having financial difficulties as a result. I attempted to ignore my mother-in-law's daily nagging and concentrated on helping Ryan. I made the decision to support Ryan the following day. I felt obligated to help him because he had recently lost his job. I put up with my mother-in-law's cruel treatment for his sake. After a month, Ryan's job was officially terminated. He first put some effort into finding a new career. But over time he began to spend more and more time at home, giving reasons why he wasn't applying anywhere. Don't you need to be more serious about your job search? I recommended politely that one day. I'm searching, he answered. But finding a company that works for me is difficult. He didn't seem to be sincere about getting a job. Despite my frustration, I remained silent and carried on providing for our family. My mother-in-law's behavior toward me worsened in the interim. I became very worn out as she continued to condemn me. I initially believed that because Ryan was unemployed, I had to put up with her conduct. However, as time passed, I stopped feeling that way. I started to feel exhausted and depressed every day. Ryan left the house earlier than normal one morning. I hoped he was finally taking his job search seriously because it was rare for him to leave so early. I started my regular chores after he left. My mother-in-law sipped her coffee on the sofa in the living room while I cleaned. She responded harshly, "Be sure to clean properly. Avoid missing any spots." I disregarded her remarks and carried on with the cleaning. She pitched a fit and began screaming at me all of a sudden. You dare disregard me? All you are is a daughter-in-law. You're not even employed. She let out a scream. Her rage only increased as I made an effort to remain composed and continued cleaning. Unemployed and useless people like you have no place in this house, she cried louder as she rushed up to me. You ought to go. She reached for the kettle of hot water she had made for her coffee and poured it on me before I could reply. Water splashed into my flesh, scorching it. It's hot. Stop, please. I let out a yell. I felt hurt and astonished. That was the tipping point. I came to the realization that I could no longer endure such a poisonous atmosphere. I felt something had to change because of the nasty and disrespectful way she was acting. When my mother-in-law threw the boiling water on me, I let out an unthinking scream. I was lucky not to get burned because the water wasn't boiling, but it might have been a horrible accident. Nevertheless, I was completely rocked. My mother-in-law, Margaret, seemed unconcerned. This is what I've been saying all along, she remarked with a sly smile. You ought to leave this house if you are not working. Her remarks really got to me, but I opted to end the argument since I was so tired of her actions. I inhaled deeply before responding. All right, I'm going to go. Good, she said, with a tone that bordered on satisfaction. That simplifies things for me. Get out of here fast. I didn't want to be in that poisonous house for much longer. I went that same day after packing as quickly as could. I went directly to my folks' home. My folks were shocked to see me when I got there. They made me feel comfortable and at home even if they weren't expecting me. Ryan didn't call or leave a message to see how I was doing, so I waited. Weeks passed with him still not responding. Despite feeling a little alone, I chose not to make contact. He would get in touch with me first if he was concerned. A month went by. Ryan had not gotten back to me yet. I started to lose interest in him at that period. I began to consider divorce as a serious possibility. He no longer seemed to be interested in our marriage or me. The doorbell at my parents' residence then rang early one morning. I was startled to discover Ryan and my mother-in-law standing outside when I went to check the monitor. After all this time, why were they here? Yes? What are you in need of? I inquired over the intercom. I've forgiven you now, yelled my mother-in-law. Return home. I was taken aback. Have you forgiven me? For what purpose? I hadn't acted improperly. Her statements were nonsensical. Thank you for saying that, but I don't think I've done anything that needs forgiving, I said coolly but firmly. I then hung up the intercom. They stayed though. Don't hang up on me, my mother-in-law said as she began pounding on the door instead. Come on in. Join us when we return. I grudgingly unlocked the door and allowed them in, fearing that their yelling may annoy the neighbors. I ushered them into the living room and motioned for them to have a seat. I said, "Why are you here?" after they had taken their seats. "What's happening?" I was baffled by their quick appearance and their entreaties for me to return. It had been my mother-in-law who had demanded my departure. Was she telling me to come back now? Her actions were illogical. I said, "You told me to go." "There's no way." "Take this argument back to your house," I intervened. "You are in a different person's house." My skin had been doused with water. I yelled, "It's hot. Please stop." I was stunned and shaking from the embarrassment and the pain. The tipping point came when my mother-in-law doused me in boiling water. I came to the realization that I could no longer endure such a poisonous atmosphere. Her actions were unconscionable and brutal, and I eventually lost it. I was lucky not to get burned because the water wasn't boiling, but it might have been a horrible accident. Nevertheless, I was completely shaken by the incident. My mother-in-law, Margaret, seemed unconcerned. "This is what I've been saying all along," she remarked with a sly smile. "You ought to leave this house if you are not working." Her remarks really got to me, but I was too tired to argue. I inhaled deeply before responding. "All right, I'm going to go." "Good," she said, seeming almost happy. "That simplifies things for me. Get out of here fast." I didn't want to be in that poisonous house for much longer. I went that same day after packing as quickly as could. I went directly to my parents' house. Although they were taken aback by my unexpected visit, they gave me a warm and welcoming reception. I felt safe for the first time in a long time. I waited, expecting a call or message from Ryan to see how I was doing. However, he didn't. Weeks passed and there was still no word. Despite my loneliness, I resisted making contact. He would get in touch with me first if he was concerned. Even after a month, Ryan had not gotten back to me. I started to lose interest in him at that period. I began to consider getting a divorce. He didn't seem to have any interest in our marriage or in me. Then early one morning my parents' doorbell rang. I was startled to see Ryan and my mother-in-law standing outside when I looked at the monitor. After all this time, why were they here? Yes? What are you in need of? I inquired over the intercom. You have my forgiveness. Return home now. My mom-in-law yelled. I was taken aback. Have you forgiven me? For what purpose? I hadn't acted improperly. Her statements were nonsensical. I gave a firm but composed response. I appreciate you saying that. However, I don't believe I've done anything that calls for forgiveness. I then hung up the intercom. They stayed though. Don't hang up on me, my mother-in-law said as she began pounding on the door instead. Come on in. Join us when we return. I grudgingly unlocked the door and allowed them in since I was afraid their yelling could wake up the neighbors. After guiding them to the living room, I signaled for them to have a seat. I said, "Why are you here?" after they had taken their seats. What's happening? I was unable to comprehend their desires. Margaret wanted me back after insisting that I go? It was illogical. You instructed me to go. I said, "You're being too loud and I'm not going back." They became somewhat calmer after hearing what I had to say. A tone of boldness and assertiveness gave way to gentle begging. They vowed never to mistreat me again. Margaret promised not to cause any more difficulty, and Ryan promised to find a job. I didn't believe them though. Their assurances seemed hollow. I was wise enough not to put my faith in their abrupt change of heart. I had experienced too much. Your words mean nothing to me now, I told them plainly. You will simply exploit me once more if I return. My suspicions were validated by their silence. I walked silently out of the living room and into my room, leaving them to think about what they had done. I came back around 6 minutes later. They remained seated, silent and with their heads down. I inquired, frustrated by the uncomfortable quiet, "How long do you intend to sit here silently?" "I don't care about it anymore." Ryan let out a long sigh rather than respond. When I gave him a piece of paper, he appeared shocked. My name was already on a divorce form that had already been filled out. As he read the document, his expression contorted in bewilderment. I stated rather plainly, "It's a divorce form. I'm done. I can't continue to be married to someone who is unemployed and who didn't even make an effort to get in touch with me after I left." Ryan had a startled expression. "Please wait. This is too abrupt," he murmured, his anger evident. I thought his response irritated me. He didn't appear to realize that what had happened was due to his actions, or rather, his inaction. He had abandoned me to handle things on my own and disregarded me when I needed help. I firmly stated, "I've already made up my mind. I'm divorcing you regardless of what you say." Ryan was still in disbelief. "Is divorce not too severe?" Weakly he inquired. "No, it's not," I said icily. "You are to blame for this." With the same icy tone, I turned to face his mother. The fact that I had been mistreated was equally her fault. Her expression was one of resignation, but she remained silent. Ryan ultimately signed the divorce papers. However, he cautioned me, saying, "Don't regret this later." However, I was relieved. "You are the one who may regret this," I asserted. "I'll personally file for the divorce. I'm not in need of payment. Simply go home and leave me alone." That marked the official end of our marriage. Although it might have sounded severe, it was essential for me to get away from my mother-in-law's abuse and Ryan's carelessness. My ex-mother-in-law called me 3 weeks later when I was unwinding at my parents' place. She sounded upset. "The gas and electricity have been turned off," she stated. "Did you take any action?" "I stopped paying for your and Ryan's living expenses," I said quietly. "That's the reason." Her voice shifted. She attempted to enlist my assistance. She was obviously hoping that, like I used to, I would intervene and make things right for them. For another 2 months I could have been of assistance, but even that seemed excessive. Given that we no longer shared a home and were no longer a family, her request seemed irrational. I declined and advised her to seek Ryan's assistance instead. Ultimately, he had pledged to secure employment and provide for her. She was perplexed by my refusal. She pleaded with me, attempting to blame me by claiming that she was still my ex-mother-in-law, but I refused to change my mind. I blocked her number and hung up. I made the decision to sever all connections after that. With Margaret, who tormented me all the time. With Ryan, who had never been trustworthy. Life at my parents' house became considerably more peaceful once I made those adjustments. I began to reconstruct my life and concentrate on myself. A few months later, Ryan sent me a message when I was on vacation looking at market charts. He said he was sorry for everything. He acknowledged that he had previously depended too much on me. Informed me that he had lately secured employment at a plant. He apologized, but I didn't want to get back in touch with him or anyone else from that period of my life. He requested if I could return and added that his mother was still mistreating him. I received his message and recognized that we would never be able to get back together. I also blocked his number. Was trustworthy, considerate, and nice to me. We got along well despite the fact that he was older than myself. Although we weren't immediately considering marriage, I relished the good moments we shared. I made the decision to put the past behind me and concentrate on the here and now. Furthermore, I didn't have to use their language to yell, fight, or exact revenge in the end. I left, made the decision to live in peace, and started again on my own terms. Silence, accomplishment, and never looking back are sometimes the most effective ways to deal with betrayal. Remember that you are free to leave if you are in pain. Establish limits. Get better. Expand. Let depart with honor. You're worthy of better. Have you ever experienced betrayal from those who were supposed to keep you safe? Leave a comment with your tale. One voice at a time, let's make room for one another. What brought you calm?